This first email comes in from Dakota from DC. They write in, "Hey GI crew. So, Bethesda just announced that Machine Games is working on an Indiana Jones title. They only showed a moving picture and a few notes and a theme song, and I am already incredibly excited for the announcement. Raiders of the Lost Ark is my personal favorite movie, and I've been waiting for another entry in this franchise and for it to enter the video game world. I know Ben is a fan of Indiana Jones. That's correct. So I was wondering, what do you guys at GI think about the announcement?" Yeah, there's a couple of things to touch on here. Not just the Indiana Jones announcement, but actually the day after that, uh, they announced, well, to back up even further, like they announced that Lucasfilm Games is now a thing. So Lucasfilm Games is kind of coming back. It's a new brand for all of the stuff under the Lucas umbrella.
It's sort of like the banner that Star Wars or that Lucasfilm related products are going to be coming out under, but not necessarily like internal studios. It's just the banner or like the organization that is working with external partners for those games.
Kind of like
LucasArts.
No,
It's not that.
Not LucasArts.
It's kind of like what Marvel's doing with their games, right? With like Spider-Man and Avengers. It's like they have the Marvel Games banner, and then
sure, yeah,
Insomniac is publishing. Yeah.
Well, it is interesting because, like we said, LucasArts used to be a thing. Like he used to make games, and now this is like it feels kind of like a return to form. But the first game they announced, as was said in the email, is that they announced an Indiana Jones games from Machine Games, and that's the studio who did like the Wolfenstein New Order or New Colossus, those games, and I love those games. And
Todd Howard is executive producing, I think, also.
Yeah. Well, did he also do that for the Wolfenstein games?
I don't know.
I don't feel like he was a consultant or something on there. But yeah, what do you guys think about that? Let's start with that announcement. Are you guys excited for a new Indiana Jones game?
I think the combination of the two is what's so exciting to me. Like, because I saw the announcement, I was like, oh, weird. Like, I love the first three movies, but I never thought of it as like a game. But then when I started thinking of like the Uncharted possibility mixed with Machine's exceptional ability in two areas that Indiana Jones is important in, the level of spectacle in their games and the characters that they create, I was like, oh, this is a weird match that I didn't know I wanted, but like I'm incredibly down for.
Yeah, it's hard for me to envision what this game exactly is, because like, for Machine Games, what you have is Wolfenstein to as sort of a pedigree to look back on, which I know people love those games, but you can't palette swap indie into Wolfenstein. I mean, I guess there's still all the Nazi killing.
A lot of Nazis, yeah.
So that's good. But I mean, like Indiana Jones as just like a first-person shooter is not the Indiana Jones that I want to play. So I am excited to see sort of Machine Games have a chance to showcase some other talents in other, like bring in mechanics from other genres and stuff to bring indie to life in a different way. Because like, man, I went back. Okay, this was a long time ago, but when LucasArts was still a thing and they were making The Force Unleashed,
Mm-hmm.
they were also making a new Indiana Jones game.
That's right.
Exactly. That I actually visited LucasArts and did a whole feature. It wasn't a cover story, but it was like a 6 or 8 page feature in the magazine about what they were going to do with this new indie game and how it was going to sort of leverage the same like physics and destructibility that Force Unleashed had. It was
cool.
The concept was just so tantalizing.
I remember reading that feature and getting really excited. And then the game never came out.
No, well, I mean, it morphed into this like way worse game that eventually came out on the Wii, and that was it.
Oh, that was that game? Yeah.
So all of the sort of like cool technical ambitions of it fell by the wayside, and it was just sort of a, forgettable Indiana Jones game then.
I definitely feel you, Joe, because in one sense, I actually like those Wolfenstein games, the Machine Games games. Weird to say that, but it's their studio name. It's their fault. But I like the games they've made so far. And I really love Indiana Jones. but it does feel like a weird mismatch. Not even just because it's a first-person game. It's just because, like, tonally, I can't imagine Machine Games making an Indiana Jones game, because Indiana Jones is much more like lighthearted and silly and playful, and that's not what they've delivered so far. Not to say they can't do that. I just haven't
Yeah.
seen that from them yet. And I think studios are much more diverse than we sometimes give them credit for. I think of Guerrilla Games. They used to make Killzone games, and I kind of just had written them off as like, oh, that's the Killzone studio. And now they make Horizon. And I'm like, well, this game's great. And it's incredible and very different from the Killzone games. So I want to see them deliver something great. It's a good studio who makes good games. So I'm hoping they'll make a good Indiana Jones game.
Yeah, and Ben, I think that's just a great point to point out there too, because like I mean, you mentioned it as a mismatch, but I don't think that's really what you mean, because it's not like it's not like Machine Games can't do good things with this property. It's just based on what we've seen them do so far, it's hard to imagine the shape that's going to take. But as you point out with Guerrilla Games, Guerrilla Games, is that what they are? Guerrilla, whatever.
Just Gorilla.
Yeah,
That's
yeah. Yeah, like as with Guerrilla, yeah, they started with an FPS thing and transitioned to a like third person, more action adventure thing, and that went great for them. So yeah, I mean, I hope we see a similar transformation.
The question that I have, I don't know if they've addressed this in any way. It seems like the details are super scarce right now, but like this seems like it lives or dies with Harrison Ford's involvement, right? And even like, are they going to have a sound alike, or like they're going to have him? Because let's face it, he did some voice acting unique to Lego Star Wars: The Force Awakens, and he uttered the phrase, which is canonical because of Disney's control, Wookiee Cookie. So that is something that exists in the Star Wars universe. But he sounds like an old guy. So what happens there?
I think as long as they're able to get the facial model in there, I think that people are less attuned to the sound alikes than they are to like,
more
visual dissonance, right?
forgiving of it in video games, I'll say. But they can just get Shia LaBeouf to like voice acting, right? He's still pretty young. He still has a good voice.
Underestimate like people's attachment to Harrison Ford as Indiana Jones, not just in likeness. You know that people freak out when like Agent 47 was voiced by a different character in Absolution, I think it was. Like they're like people are ready to mobilize pitchforks at anything. And I think Harrison Ford and Indiana Jones is like one of the big tentpoles of like modern pop culture. So
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I guess my thoughts on that are tempered by like I remember when Electronic Arts got Sean Connery to do voice work for their From Russia with Love game, and like I wish they would have gotten a sound alike.
Yeah.
You know, it sounded, you know, like God bless Sean Connery, but he just did not sound like his heart was in it.
Yeah.
You know, and I
That's
feel
the other
like
thing. Like it'll be the actual guy, but he's not going to put as good as much sweat into it as somebody else who's like, you know, trying to prove themselves.
I just cannot picture Harrison Ford caring at all about video game voiceover.
And he'll probably go into the studio and somehow he'll crash a plane while he's doing voiceover recordings. Like he's going to hurt himself. I don't know how, but he will.
Lucky to be alive.
Yes,
I would
right.
love to be in the VO booth when he does it, though. Like, just like what the do you want me to say? Like, what? I'm not saying this. Like that
Maybe
kind of
you
stuff.
get it in. You do a like, you know, Indiana Jones Chronicles style thing where you have him as an 80-year-old Indiana Jones reflecting on his life, and then you cut to young Indiana Jones voiced by somebody else.
Little Batman Beyond type thing where he's like the mentor to whatever Shia LaBeouf's character would be. Be into that.
I had a crippling case of meningitis that week, and I couldn't speak.
Yeah, the year I went mute. Well, what do you guys want from Indiana Jones games? Do you guys care about Indiana Jones? I know I've gone on record as saying like I think it's my preferred Lucasfilm, you know, franchise, just because I love it so much, and I like Star Wars. Don't get me wrong, but like Indiana Jones just speaks to me. So I love the Uncharted games. Like something along those lines could be fun, but maybe with more, I don't know, whip play.
I want Uncharted, but without all of the gunplay. Like I think
that's kind of what I was getting at. I don't think I want to shoot like tons of people.
Yeah, I think an Indiana Jones game that is like, it's got to have action, but I think like a lot of the action scenes in Indiana Jones games are sort of defined by like set piece contextual elements, or not the games, but I mean like the movies, right? Like
Mhm.
you don't want to just be an Indiana Jones who like walks into a room and a bunch of goons come in and you just like have to punch or whip them, right? You want things like the guy fighting on the plane, and
Mhm.
things, those sort of like
Mhm.
special action moments, I think is an important thing to capture, rather than just like what feels like just putting people through the grinder of repetitive encounters.
Mhm.
So have like a good brawling system, but I still don't want to like fight like 100 people. Like make it bespoke, make it special and interesting.
Mhm. I think
Maybe
games are also, there's so many games that have been inspired by Indiana Jones. I hope that like Machine Games looks to those as things that have just been done and we don't need to do that. Like I don't need to climb from ledge to ledge and then like look over my shoulder and jump to the adjacent ledge and pull myself up and the piece of ledge is going to fall, but I just make it in time. I don't want to climb
Oh,
up a
that sounds
vine.
exciting.
I don't
I
want to
mean,
do any of that stuff because I've done it so many times in like Tomb Raider and Uncharted. It's like
I think there's definitely a reason why some of the absolute like most popular and fondly remembered indie games are old school adventure games, because
Mhm.
like those are the things that capture what it's about, that whole like poring over clues and puzzle solving, sort of like using wits and like ingenuity, rather than just like I'm going to punch my way through every problem.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we're right on. So let us know, Machine Games, when you're ready to talk. We got some good ideas for you.
yeah, you owe us $500. Sorry.
Oh,
Each.
don't sell us
Each.
short. We can get a lot more money. Okay. The other thing we should talk about, Lucasfilm Games also announced that they're partnering with Ubisoft to make a new Star Wars game. They're going to make an open world Star Wars adventure, and this is the studio involved is Ubisoft Massive Entertainment, which is the studio behind the Division games.
Mhm.
What do you guys think about this announcement?
You're gonna climb up something tall and look through like those binoculars with the Star Wars writing on the side and mark waypoints. 100% you're gonna do that.
Yeah, it's exciting. I don't know. I mean, like as someone, the Division is a game that never really clicked for me personally, but as someone who's been immersed in a lot of Star Wars stuff recently, like most recently The Mandalorian, like how can you watch The Mandalorian and not constantly think about what a great video game that would make?
Mhm.
Right? That idea of even though it still recycles a bunch of sort of like Star Wars characters and storylines. Not recycles, but like it picks up those threads. At the same time, I love The Mandalorian because it also moves that world further away from the Jedi, further away from the black and white morality that sort of defines the Skywalker saga and stuff. So I think a game, it can have all kinds of action. Like Star Wars has blaster fights, it has melee fights, it has space combat, it has like all sorts of weird planetary exploration. Like whatever this game is, it's impossible to encompass everything that Star Wars is in it. But I think that as long as Massive uses it as an opportunity to really like expand the Star Wars universe and let players sort of live in it beyond the confines of that like Skywalker storyline, I think that that's the main thing I want from it.
For sure. And jumping off of that point too, for me, I don't know if this is going to be like, is it going to be Republic Commando always online, or is it like, going to be more Star Wars 1313? We don't know. But I think the one thing that is exciting to me about Massive is that they can tell really great organic stories through their worlds. And like that was part of the interest in Division for me, was because it felt like they had built this lived in interesting space that I wanted to explore. Like Joe said, I didn't get super into Division, but that was one of the selling points, right? So if they can take what's already, one of the most popular IPs ever and have that as a playground, that's what excites me. I like I talked about earlier, I guess I'm a little burnt on open world and online and stuff like that. So I don't know if that's the direction I'd want them to go, but I'll be excited when we see it. So
Yeah. I feel the same way. It's interesting because EA has had an exclusive license for the Star Wars stuff for the last like 8 years or so. And so it's kind of fun to see other developers finally getting a chance to play around in this universe. And as you pointed out, Cork kind of joked, like, I think we can kind of envision what this Ubisoft Star Wars game might play like. At the same time, like, I don't know, I like the formula that they've been rolling with for a long time. And I would love to, do that in a Star Wars setting. It's hard to argue with. At the same
I
time,
hope though that it isn't just like a homogenized. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, I am a sucker for Ubisoft's homogenized open world formula that is absolutely a formula. Like, they mix it up and everything, but like, it is definitely a brand that you're investing in. And like, people I think have like peeled off and been like, okay, I've had enough. I'm not at that point yet. I still really enjoy like the drip feed of new content and everything that they. It seems like a psychological attack on me. Like, I'm just vulnerable to it. But but I hope that they try to do something different with this. I hope like Star Wars is like a big enough of a prestige brand where it's kind of like, we need to meet Star Wars on the Star Wars end of things rather than pulling Star Wars into our orbit, if that makes sense.
sure.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, is there? These are just like the first two projects they announced, and they could very well announce something before this podcast goes up, even. So this might be out of date. But is there anything else that you guys would love to see them tackle? Any other announcements? You want to see a Willow game?
I'd be curious to see how much they tie into the High Republic storylines that they're doing outside of the movies and TV shows. That's an interesting era to me because I still like the Jedi stuff. I never need to hear Skywalker again. So if you can tell interesting stories through that, hundreds of years separated from Vader and stuff like that, I'm a sucker for a lightsaber. So I would love to see other studios get a shot at something like that.
I want to be surprised and not like surprised in the way that we've become accustomed with Star Wars, where it's like, oh wow, that guy knows that guy too. Wow, what a surprise! I want to be surprised like, this is completely unrelated. There's not even like a whiff of a lightsaber, or no one even knows what the Force is. This is its own thing.
This person is not anyone's daughter, or not anyone you know anyway.
No daughters allowed in this universe.
Yeah. But I think for the announcement that I'd be excited for, and I know this is a little weird, but like, so remember that EA's exclusivity deal ends in 2023. So they still have a couple years of Star Wars stuff possibly in that company. They've said that they are looking forward to like putting out more Star Wars games between now and the end of the contract. I would love to hear that Knights of the Old Republic 3 is one of those games that's still going to make it in under the wire. That is the Star Wars announcement that I want more than anything.
Well, that'd be great.
I know I was complaining about the whole like black and white morality of Star Wars a minute ago, but I think it works really well in that sort of RPG setting. I just want another like single player party based RPG.
Yeah.
I know BioWare's busy. If BioWare doesn't do it, I mean, Obsidian's been knocking that kind of thing out of the park lately. Get them back on it. I don't know, but that's what I want.
For sure. Mando prequel game when is my next question.
Oh,
that has to be, right? Something.
Boy DeLorean.
Ooh,
that'd be cool.
There you go. Yeah, whether it's early days of him training or like just being in the guild or working his way into the guild, that seems like ripe for a game.
See, that's what I don't like about Star Wars. Not to be antagonistic, Alex. I love you.
No,
like if there's any gap, like it's just like Star Wars lore masters are like caulk. They have to like infiltrate every little bit, and it's just like leave some of it a mystery. Like I don't need to know who the person who's the blacksmith. I don't need to know where she came from and her home planet. And actually, did you know that she was Baby Yoda's friend before? Or, I don't want to know any of that stuff. I don't care.
You don't want a dating simulator of the Mando's parents? Like, I agree with you.
Actually, yes, I do want that.
Yeah. I agree with
that
you.
would be cool. Like some weird stuff. Like I'd love to see weird stuff like that. Give me like a side-scrolling platformer or something done by an indie studio. Like I'd eat that up.
16-bit.
a weirdo Star Wars dating thing where you're like trying to get a bunch of creepy aliens to like mash their bits together, that would be
Like you're Jabba, and you're just seeing like you could like look down and see your gross little arms, and then but then you're just like commanding people to do stuff like play some music for me.
just a Jabba the Hutt simulator.
They could make that a VR game. That'd be perfect for like seated VR, where you're just like, all right, I'll eat some of the frogs.
Hold X to inhale deeply.
Hey guys, I think we're ruining Lucasfilm Games' next announcement.
We owe you $500. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay, you can keep it.
Yeah, please see Machine Games. Cool. Well, yeah, I don't know. It's very exciting. I can't wait to see more, and obviously I want to play all these games. So I don't know. Put me in cryogenic freezing, I guess.
I don't know what these games are first before I commit to wanting to play them.
You'll
cool our
wanna.
jets a little bit.
Come on, like you're not going to play this Star Wars game.
Well, if I get paid, I will, but we'll see.
I am excited to learn more.
Yeah,
Definitely excited to
definitely
learn more.
Yeah.
It's an exciting time.
We're above it all, Ben. See, that's how we do it.